Thanks, Yuri. My name is Markus Glaser, and together with Mark Hirschberger, I'm contracted by the foundation to do MediaWiki release management, which is basically we are responsible for putting out the tarball. So when you download MediaWiki, you install it. That's the tarball, and obviously that's not the core business of the foundation. A foundation aims at deploying their software at the Wikimedia sites. And recently they decided, which I find a very good step, to put some extra focus on third-party users like we are here, and to work on the tarball and on the release management. Okay, and I'm here in that capacity at the moment. I'm wearing this hat. And I want to talk to you about improving dependency management and easing upgrades, which is a huge task and title. I want to share some more or less initial thoughts with you about what state we are in, and what the options are that we have, and which directions we think we should be heading in the near future. Okay, so the current situation looks like when you install a MediaWiki, and it's a bit more complex, you're using a bunch of extensions. Then the puzzle you're putting together is more like this. So the pieces don't really fit together, and you have to glue them in some way. And what I find personally is that upgrading MediaWiki is very easy. The update script is really cool. But if you want to upgrade the extensions accordingly, then you can get into serious trouble. And that's basically also the reason that even some of the major non-Wikimedia sites using MediaWiki are not running on the latest versions of MediaWiki, but on older versions, because they have hacked their own code, and they're relying on extensions that have not been updated and all these things. So basically, and I guess that's what Jeroen also said, and I'm adding to that, it's hard to find working extension versions for older MediaWiki releases. Also, there is a system we tag extensions for the MediaWiki version, but this tagging is done more or less randomly. So when a MediaWiki version comes out, we tag all the extensions and say this is the extension version for this MediaWiki version, not taking into account the maturity level of that extension, or if it's just in under development. This will become even more apparent with the LTS versions. I don't know if you're aware of that. Since I think half a year or a year, we have introduced, or Mark Hirschberger has introduced long-term support versions, and the first long-term support version I think is MediaWiki 1.19. I guess the next one will be 1.23, but I'm not totally sure. And of course, if you as extension developers going to develop new features for your extension, you have to take into account or consider that there will be a lot of people that are running MediaWiki on the LTS versions, because they are supported. We do bug backporting and even some easy feature backporting for those versions. So this will become even more interesting in the future. So what can we do about this? Well, first of all, who are the actors in this whole game? I guess one obvious group of actors is the extension developers. They usually develop against a certain MediaWiki version, usually the most recent one, and of course they should know the dependencies of their version, their extension, but not all the developers share this knowledge and give it to other people. So usually when you face a problem with an extension, you go to the extension developer. They tell you, okay, that's easy to solve. You just have to do this and that, but it's not shared. Okay. Second actor group is, of course, the release management, and that's my role also, we try to provide infrastructure and provide best practices for this dependency management, and that's why I'm here. And I guess there's a third group of actors also. That's of course the extension users, whom we want to provide feedback about which extension version is working with which MediaWiki version or not. And also users, quite often, if they are power users, can provide patches or useful hints on how to get a certain extension running with the new MediaWiki version. Okay, so one approach to work with extensions and different MediaWiki versions is versioning your extensions. And I guess we have like different approaches there, depending on how complex the extension is you're writing. So I guess a lot of like smallish extensions work with some kind of compatibility layer. That means you have I'm so sorry. So that means if your extension is should be working with a few MediaWiki versions, then you do something like version switches. You have WG version. If it's 117, then use this function. If it's 119, use that function. So you have a built-in compatibility. But of course, you can only maintain it for so long. I'm about to die. Yuri, thank you. Okay. The more advanced extensions, so the more complex extensions, they would have a versioning on their own, be it per MediaWiki version, which is what we are doing when we're tagging the extensions, or of course per extension. So take Semantic MediaWiki, for example, which has its own versioning system, which goes aside the MediaWiki version. So how do we fit this together? One is, as I said, automated tagging and branching. Do you know the difference between a tag and a branch in Git? So basically, a tag is just a label for a specific version in Git, and branching is you can start developing on an own development track of that specific label. So when we like release a new MediaWiki version, we automatically branch each extension, and then you can start working on the specifics of that MediaWiki version for your extension. So that's why there is an automated branching. That, of course, does not consider in any way the maturity state of your extension. So if your extension was just an initial release, you will get a MediaWiki 122 branch, for example, which you can work on. But then, of course, you have to develop on your master branch and still go on with the features you want to develop. Also, if we are talking about tagging, and that's the reason why we don't do it, is if you want to do backports. Like we have your extension has a new feature, and this new feature is developed for MediaWiki 123. Then you maybe want to also backport this to the version for 122. If you tag this, you can't really change a tag, like the code that's tagged. So the only solution is to branch and to work on that. As I said, of course, as extension developers, you can also do custom tagging and branching. And we're trying to figure a good way to combine this. Like one example would be, or one track of ideas I have is that we do automated branching, but we prefer like your custom branches or tags over the automated branches and tags when it comes to extension downloading. So that's where we are actually looking for best practices also, and I'm always open for your input. Second issue we have, and that's whereas the first one is the compatibility layer of versioning kind of thing, and the custom tagging is on the side of the actors, whereas the automated tagging and branching is on the side of the release management team, if you want to say so. So when it comes to managing dependencies, that's of course the next step. So even the best versioning system in extensions does not help if we don't know which extensions fit to which MediaWiki version and what are the dependencies. So basically we have to figure a way of how to declare matching versions, what is the minimum version required, maybe even a maximum version that a certain extension works with. And of course the question about several dependencies, like if your extension is dependent on MediaWiki and stub extension or universal language selector or anything else. And thankfully, Jarun told us about a possible solution that's to use Composer, the Composer framework, which is a dependency management and packaging system on PHP. And I know that there is a lot of support for this, so I guess that's one of the very next steps we're going to take and to go to try and provide Composer support for MediaWiki plus the most used extensions. But still, this is, of course, it needs a lot of discipline on the side of the extension developers. And I'm sometimes naive, but I do not believe in miracles. So the truth will most likely be that given the about 1,000 extensions we have a MediaWiki repository, we will not get all extension developers to point out their dependencies and their required versions. So one idea, if you look around and look what other pieces of software are doing, is to do some kind of crowd certification. So the idea is that on MediaWiki.org, on the extension page, everyone can indicate working combinations. And you can see here, these are screenshots taken from WordPress. They do it that way. And there you can say, okay, I'm using WordPress version 3.6, for example. I want to use plugin version, or which plugin version works. And the paradigm here is that not the extension developer indicates or declares what's working, but actual users are contributing to this, and they say, okay, this combination works for me. That also covers the fact that even when an extension developer declares a certain compatibility, maybe 2 MediaWiki versions later, you don't really know, because you can't expect every extension developer to test his extension against every minor version of MediaWiki. So we might be able to get some data, some actual usage data, via crowd support. There's a drawback though. The number of combinations are quite high. And if you look at the WordPress way, how they do it, quite often you get this. It says not enough data because only 1 or 0 people indicated that this combination is working. Although I think if you get some kind of cool visualization for that, it might also be quite helpful. Sorry. So one last idea we are following, and this will most likely be part of MediaWiki 123, is to actually collect usage statistics automatically. So the idea is that someone who installs MediaWiki can register with a service like Wiki Apiary via opt-in. So you are asked, do you want to send anonymous usage statistics? And then if you opt in, if you allow that, then a wiki apiary bot comes to your wiki and polls the special version page, for example, for the combinations of extensions. And that's already working. So if you go to wiki apiary, you can look at specific extensions and you can see how many instances of a MediaWiki plus the specific extension version you have. Although wiki apiary is still, it's collecting a lot of data, but it's still not enough data. So we want to help that by actually using such an opt-in registration. There is an RFC on mediawiki.org where we ask for your comments about that, because of course we are aware that this is some thing. It might be some security and privacy specific thing. So the question is, what information can we collect? What information would you be willing to give us as a maintainer of a wiki? Or would you even do that? Or would you prefer not to? I guess the benefits are quite high. It's also a question of we don't even know which extensions are used, how much. We have like small indications for popular extensions, but we do not have real usage data, so we don't know which things we should focus on. Okay, by the way, MediaWiki 122 RC0 is out, so it was published yesterday. So if you want to try the new MediaWiki version and give us feedback on whether it's working or not, you're invited. The link is there, and the slides will be published soonish. And I guess that's about it. Do you have any questions or thoughts or other input on this issue?
Okay, the microphone disappeared. I hold it. Okay. Turn it on. Yeah, it's not actually. Okay. Are there any questions to that, or answers rather to the questions that Markus have made? Yeah, Alexander.
So Markus, what do you think? Is there a way to feedback the extension version information also to the Bugzilla system, so that one who's reporting a bug can pick the right extension version? Because currently you have release 1.19.120, so the MediaWiki core releases, but not the version for the extensions.
That's a good question. I mean, it's easy to implement another field that just says, give me your extension version. And that's a good idea. But I'm not sure if we can do this automatically. I mean, we might, but that would need some tweaking of Bugzilla, I guess. So I don't know if you want to do that effort at the moment.
Okay, Joel.
I know Garrett syncs with GitHub. Are there any more GitHub integration type things? Because that's where the developers live, in GitHub, apparently, right now. In terms of, for me, like I made some minor contributions in Garrett, and I happen to have the same ID in GitHub, and I got quote-unquote credit for it in my GitHub profile. Are there any other things that are you doing to promote that?
And the other facet of coolness of using GitHub instead of Garrett is that it's actually usable in a more way.
Yeah, so I'm not the main inventor of Git and Garrett here, and it's not easily to be changed. But I guess that if we want to get more contributions to extension patches, we need to open up the an upstream via GitHub. So I would support this, but it's not currently our main focus to do so.
I think there are a few pretty simple changes to the info box within MediaWiki.org that could help a lot. I mean, right now there's only 3 types of status an extension can have. It's like experimental, beta, or unstable, or something like that. There's nothing for unmaintained or unsecure, or somewhat maintained, or that kind of thing. And I'm sure there's a few other pretty simple things like that. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, or if you have any control over it.
I think that the whole way extensions are presented in MediaWiki.org is not very friendly to the user, not very friendly to the developers. So if you look at other products, like WordPress, for example, you get something like the top-rated extensions or the most, and that's also an incentive, of course, for an extension developer to actually maintain their extensions. So I guess that's something in medium term we need to work on. I like the idea of improving the info box a little tiny bit. The question though is, whereas we can have a status experimental and beta and stable, which the developer can actually set, no developer will set the status unmaintained. So the question is, who is checking for those statuses? But yeah, maybe that's also a crowd thing, so why not?
First, thank you for pushing this issue. It's very important, and there are already made some improvements during the last years. I think one of the core problems are the release cycle of MediaWiki itself. We are now at version 1.22, so maybe we are maybe at a point we are at 1.85 or something like this. If you look on other software, you don't have these problems at all. For example, with Drupal, there are no version conflicts at all, because they have their main releases, and within the releases they have no changes for their hooks and so on, and that you can develop your modules against these versions. So maybe there could be some dialogue or however with Wikimedia to think about their release cycle.
So I guess the situation we are in here is somewhat more specific, because MediaWiki is primarily developed to run a big wiki site, which you probably know, and that's the main goal. That's why what the developers are paid for, and that's what people are donating their money for. So that's the main focus we have, and that's also like unlike with other products, that's always, we are in a bit of a conflict here, because the main focus is run the sites and continue with the sites. You can just, yeah. So the question is, I have to look into that Drupal model, but you're talking about like when you continue versioning, you improve the software, but you do not introduce breaking changes. That's basically the concept behind it, right? Okay. Well, I guess one major step that's been made is that breaking changes are declared now. So if you look at the release notes, you can find at least information about what things are possibly going to break. That's one step. But of course, there's still room for improvement, I guess. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Markus.
Thank you.